Hello everyone, and let's have a very honest discussion today around how to get started when it comes to AI integration, building AI-powered software, because let's be honest, with so many tools coming out every single day, so many technologies, it's just really hard to understand how to get started. Because the reality is you have so many tools out there, all of them are saying, we guarantee you perfect sort of match with your existing workflows and that everything will go well. When the reality is that there's so many inflated expectations when it comes to AI integration. So I just really want to have this very honest and very transparent conversation with you, and I'll try to be very objective. Just for context, my name is Vlad and I run a company called Green Republic. We are a software studio based in London, specializing in building AI-powered software out in London. 25 people, and so far we've built, I think, more than 80 different products. So we know a thing or two about building very complex software and building AI-powered software, or just integrating AI tools into your existing software. And I think it's just a very tricky moment now where, again, as I mentioned earlier, there's so many tools out there on the market, but the challenge is that it's really hard to understand how to come up with a holistic solution because, again, ChatGPT was released in 2022, it's 2025 now, and we're not seeing that many successful cases, because the way I see it now, objectively, on the market, you either have these super rich companies, obviously with massive budgets, billions, that can afford AI innovation, even if they fail. And then on the other side, you have these very small tools. Yes, you have ChatGPT, it's amazing, powerful, but it doesn't really fit in, most likely, into your existing workflows. And again, my studio specializes in working with businesses, I would say, that have 20 to 500, 700 people, meaning that you have established processes. And based on that experience, I really want to share a couple of things that I think you'll find very useful if you are a CTO, head of change, head of innovation, and trying to understand where to get and how to get started, most importantly. So I guess let's get going. Number one, very often the mistake that actually happens is people stick to a tool and then they try to force AI integration and AI innovation. A CTO, a head of change, identifies a tool that looks good for their business depending on their industry, whether it's, I don't know, manufacturing, tourism, logistics, or whatever it is. And then what very often happens, you get in touch with essentially the sales department of that AI tool, and they try to persuade you and tell you, hey, our tool is amazing and we are 100% sure that this tool will integrate perfectly into your existing workflows. Now, I wouldn't really trust that. I know this sounds very black and white, I get it, but the reality is at this point, you're just blindly believing that this tool will fit in well into your existing workflows. So I would really stick to the, let's call it, standard software development practices. Either hire a business analyst, or maybe you have one internally, or just find a person who has that expertise internally and is ready to essentially do that job for you. So what then happens is that person starts analyzing all of the current processes within the company. Now, you might say, okay, there's so many processes across so many departments, and you can't really analyze all of the processes. Realistically, the best way to handle it is for that business analyst or the product owner to talk to all of the key stakeholders at your company. Let's say the head of marketing, the head of operations, the head of, depending on how many departments you have at your company. And then a very interesting thing happens. Make sure that you do a couple of calls, because if that person, the business analyst, is only going to do one call with every single person, most likely it's not going to be that productive. Because the very tricky thing when it comes to AI integration, because let's think about this a bit wider. What is AI integration? AI integration is essentially a way to make your company more efficient, right? Reduce costs, increase speed, and just optimize your business. Now, when you talk to any of the team members, let's be honest, all of us are always biased, right? And we always think that we have already optimized everything as much as we could. So none of us will say, oh yeah, I've got this massive problem over here. So what needs to happen is that business analyst to essentially build somewhat a relationship with each of the heads of each department, to start kind of like feeling and understanding where are the potential problems. Now, again, this won't happen on the first call, but as you start talking to each of the key stakeholders, the business analyst will start understanding, actually, we have a potential problem here, we have a potential problem there. Because the other potential risk in your case would be just coming up and hypothetically assuming that there's a problem somewhere. So without actually properly engaging with stakeholders, you can't really understand where to integrate AI, as obvious as it sounds. So again, if I were you, I would spend, your business analyst needs to spend 2 to 3 weeks working with your key stakeholders to understand where the main pain points are. The way it works is really simple. On call number 2, the business analyst starts to understand, maybe this is, a process that costs us too much. Maybe this is another process that costs us too much. Because very often key stakeholders, again, they won't pinpoint a specific area, but they'll basically say, you know what, actually, I'm spending 10 minutes here every single day, and that annoys me a lot. Or very often you would say, based on my experience, you would see a manager saying, hey, actually 40 people do this every single day. It takes an hour every day, and that's annoying. These are the hints that essentially the business analyst needs to add to a Word document or somewhere else to start collecting all of that feedback, all of those insights, and you take it first very high level, and then the business analyst goes deeper and deeper and deeper. And that's exactly how you start to essentially identify those processes for automation. Now, step number 2, let's now pretend we have that entire list for processes automation. Now, what needs to happen, which is very, very critical, obviously the job of the business analyst, if it's properly done, that person has had, let's say, 100 ideas. The business analyst has to narrow it down to, let's say, 20 potential or somewhat feasible ideas, right? Then we have those 20 ideas in list, and here's what needs to happen next. You essentially need to understand the cost of each of those processes, because you have those 20 ideas, 20 existing processes that you currently have in your business. Now, the challenge for you is to objectively put a number on each of those processes. And this is why, again, the business analyst needs to work with each of the key stakeholders to understand actually how much each process costs right now as is. And this ideal scenario is, let's say hypothetically, you have process, let's call it process number 1. David emails Mary, Mary adds this PDF to this database, then Ben exports that database somewhere. And what's very critical and important here, that you actually put a number there. What that means is, if it takes David, let's say half an hour to export something from the database, and let's just pretend David's hourly rate is $80 an hour, then obviously you write down and say, this process as it is now costs us $40 every time we do it. So that then you can objectively see, Anna's part, David's part, Ben's part, and it's not just labor. You need to add all of the existing costs that actually are related to running that process specifically. Because at the end, what you'll actually have is, again, that entire list, 20 things, and each process will have a very specific cost next to it. Perfect. Let's move on to the next step. What is very important here now, you have all of those costs, is to prioritize things. Because very interestingly, I would say, is what happens sometimes, you might have, let's say, process number 1, and it costs $1,000 to run it. And you have process number 2, it costs $500 to run it every time you do it, right? In some cases, process number 2 might have a higher priority than process number 1. So this is where essentially this is your job to work with a business analyst to really understand how much of a priority this current process is. Because what I would recommend then, depending on your budgets, depending on ambitions, and so on, pick probably like the top 10. Let's keep top 10. So we had a list of 20, then let's keep a list of 10. The reason why you need that, because the challenge that very often happens, and the problem is, when it comes to the overall AI strategy, too many businesses are trying to come up with one umbrella solution that will cover all of the 10 workflows, all of the 10 processes, and you essentially try to, in one go, integrate AI everywhere. And I can straight away say that it works rarely. That's definitely a high chance to fail at AI integration. Anyways, you keep the top 10, because then you actually understand, cool, this is priority number 1, priority number 2, priority number 3. Because then again, having that cost and understanding the priorities, you can now take, depending on what you want, you can take all of the top 10, you can take the top 3, you can take the top 5. And what you do next is, again, but here in this case, together with a business analyst and together with the tech team now, you need to start understanding how this process would look like if it was running with AI inside. Because you know the priorities now, you have the costs as is, but what you need to do essentially now is to understand the real cost if AI was plugged into this process, right? And then because you have all of the processes A to Z sort of written out for every single process, you now put a number. I'm just brainstorming on the go, but let's just pretend exporting a file and for it to be manually added somewhere that could be done with AI, and now it takes a minute instead of 30 minutes every single day. Let's pretend that now for the daily report, AI generates that email, and then that email is sent over to David, and that saves Anna 15 minutes. Right? So you have very tangible factors here, and you can actually estimate the new numbers, because then you actually look at the to be process and you say, look, we're keeping David here because objectively that can't be optimized, right? But then instead of Anna doing this, AI is going to do this and that. And instead of Anna spending 30 minutes, and let's assume 30 minutes again costs $40, AI is going to do this. And you can objectively actually judge and say, you know what? One request, one generation costs us 5 cents, 10 cents, whatever it is. So there you go. You had $40 because Anna was doing something, and now you have 10 cents. And obviously that's a bit of a difference here, right? So then after you do this entire exercise, basically what you have is the process as is. Let's just pretend it was $500. The process with AI is now $100 every time you do it, right? So then you have a very cool table, let's call it that. You have the priority, you have the process as is, you have the process to be with AI integrated inside. And this is such a great overview because you can actually see, cool, this is a high priority, currently costs us $500. Now it can cost us $100. And you can actually, make a very simple calculation. $500 minus $100, you're saving $400 every single time you do it for that process. Because you need to do this exercise to actually understand, are you going to make any money here? Because as sad as it sounds, very often what happens is stakeholders and decision makers will actually say, hey, you know what? We need to automate this because this is an annoying process, and yeah, let's just optimize it with AI. But when you actually do this entire exercise, you start understanding, you know what? Actually, we're not saving that much if we're going to integrate AI into this process, because, we've done this many times. And what's interesting is there's always these, again, inflated expectations when it comes to AI integration, right? And everyone kind of automatically assumes that if you plug in AI, magically things will work out and numbers will work too. When the reality is not always. Yes, most cases it does work, and you can be leaner, you can run things quicker, cheaper, more efficient, and so on and so on. But there are use cases where the numbers don't work. So you need to do this exercise to essentially understand, is it even worth it? Because again, you need to know the processes. I can guarantee you already, for those 10 processes that you have identified, 2 out of 10 won't work in terms of numbers. So why bother? Let's just stick to the high priority ones where the numbers work, because you're going to save money or make more money, right? It's as simple as that. But perfect. Let's go on to the next step now. Let's assume you have picked, let's say 3, right? That's a good number. You have picked 3 processes that are a high priority for you. You know how much they cost you right now, and then you know how much they will cost in the future with AI integrated into it. And what you need to do next is basically understand the risks. Now, this is a very interesting topic that I really want to discuss with you, because again, because of that FOMO effect and just, AI hype and all of that, everyone is just rushing into this development, into this build mode, when the reality is, when it comes to AI strategy, we really need to assess it from all sides, because paradoxically, things could work, numbers could work, but risks are really high. And I just want to talk to you about the fact that even if numbers do work, is there a risk, a new risk that could be created if you integrate AI into your product? There's a lot of these very funny, well, it's not that funny, but a lot of these funny stories in the media where a person would talk to a AI chatbot. I remember this one example with airlines, and then the person was talking to AI chatbot, and the AI chatbot essentially said that the ticket would cost you $20, while online it was actually $200. And then the court has actually said that, hey guys, if the AI chatbot has said that the ticket price was $20, then you need to sell it for $20. This is a funny story, but I think it can get very tricky and it can get very, very serious. If let's say you're working in the health sector, imagine you have an AI bot and the person is asking something about their health, right? And again, the numbers work, it's way cheaper for you than a doctor answering emails or whatever it is. But then the bot gives some false information, and as a result, that person has some health issues. Right? That's something that we do want to avoid as well, obviously, because unfortunately, a lot of businesses are not even thinking about that. And this is exactly what I'm saying. Let's just, again, for the sake of the example, pretend that we have chosen 3 processes, right, that work in terms of numbers, priority, and everything else. But actually, for one of them, for whatever reason it is, we have identified a substantial risk. that could be created as a result of integrating AI into that specific process. And to avoid that risk, obviously you need to do two things. You need to align with all of the stakeholders in your company to understand, are you creating any additional risks if your tech team is integrating any of the AI tools? And then number two, obviously you need to run, if you even build that solution, you need to run and understand all of the data at least over the next 1-2 months. If you've built that solution, to see, is the bot, is the web app or whatever you have built actually creating any new additional risks for your customers? Because there is this illusion that once it's built, it's like, cool, perfect. We have optimized processes, but I actually think that one of the biggest challenges in the future will be how to keep, essentially innovating in the AI space while reducing those risks for the business. Because we are still at a point where the very honest answer is we often don't know. It's an unknown. It's an unknown for us in terms of what risks can AI create for us as a business or your customers. And this is why I think the best thing you can do right now is to just keep understanding whether a solution will create new risk or not. If obviously there's a low risk that something can go wrong, then that's fine. But if you're confident that, hey, actually it can give false information, then probably it's better to avoid at this point and not do anything new for that specific workflow or process in your business. Let's move on. The next thing that you need to do is essentially do two things. You need to build a POC or start understanding what tool you're going to use for this specific new process that, again, we've chosen, right? We're sticking now to only 2 processes because one of them had risks. So this is a very interesting one as well, because there's a couple of challenges and a couple of issues that happen here. Issue number 1, again, if from the very beginning you have chosen a tool and you actually at this point still don't know whether it's going to work out well for your business or not, now here you need to focus on building a POC, proof of concept, which means you take that existing AI tool off the shelf and you start building that AI solution that you need using that specific tool. Now, what can actually happen, as I was kind of saying at the very beginning, that tool, that AI tool that you can, use on a subscription basis, whether it's $20 per month, $30 per month, there's actually a chance that it may not fit into your current workflow. And this is for you to assess as a head of change, CEO or CTO, right? Now, your alternative here is to build it yourself. Here, what I would recommend is obviously you simplify the POC as much as possible to then really see what is better for you. If you have the resources, I would actually do both of the things, because let's be honest, when it comes to even custom AI powered solutions, most of them are using something like ChatGPT, well, OpenAI or Claude or something else on the back end, right? So even though I know that you can use an existing solution, which is costing you $20, $30 per month, if you have the resources, build a very simple thing that usually takes, 3 or 4 weeks. It may look ugly, but as long as it does the job. Because what I'm seeing now very often is you can stick to a tool, right? But then further down the line, in the next 2 or 3 months, you actually understand that this solution is not scalable. And this is purely, your call, and you need to understand what is better for you in this case. My recommendation, if you feel that the tool that you have chosen actually works for you and is potentially scalable, then go ahead with that. Because let me put this number out there. I do think for 80% of the use cases, you can actually use something that exists already. So let's simplify it, 80, 20%. I do think 80% can be easily done with existing tools. 20% needs to be done in a very custom way. And if you don't have the resources, let's just pretend we're reviewing one specific process, right? All of the things we've identified earlier. If you don't have the resources and you still want to take an existing tool, okay, even if the existing tool that you have chosen doesn't perfectly sort of blend into your potential issue or whatever you're trying to optimize, then maybe try sort of tweak the workflow slightly so that then it perfectly fits that tool. That's the easiest thing to do essentially, because otherwise you'll have to go the custom way, right? And obviously that costs more money. It has its own advantages or disadvantages. But again, my recommendation is 80% of things can be done with existing tools, and you're just going to be paying $20, $30, $40, $50 per month. And that's pretty much it. That's the simplest way to do it. Now, here's a very important thing to actually remember. Whenever you're trying to take this process and you're thinking about integrating an existing AI tool off the shelf into your process, if it feels wrong and you're still experiencing some difficulty, difficulties, what I would recommend in this case, you can actually break that process down into many processes. Because as I was kind of saying earlier in this video, a challenge that often happens is businesses identify 5 use cases for AI, and then they try to basically like find this one umbrella solution that fits for all of them at once. And it just doesn't work. I'll be honest with you straight away, it doesn't work. So in the case that you want to take an existing AI tool on a subscription basis and your process doesn't fit into this, maybe it makes sense to split this process into 3 different mini processes, right? So that at least you can automate one, part of that process by using this existing AI tool. That's my biggest advice. And if you actually feel that you need to go custom, your processes are very unique and you need to innovate, you need to make sure that the future tool is very scalable, then obviously you go the custom way. But in some sense, you know what? I actually think even if you were to go the custom way, I would honestly push as much as you can using these off-the-shelf existing tools. And only when you get to a point where, you can't just squeeze anything else out of it, then go custom. That will be my recommendation. But all in all, I think these are the most important things that you need to consider when it comes to integrating AI. And to sum up, again, let me kind of like repeat myself here, but I think that the biggest problem right now overall is that there's so many tools out there and all of them are promising amazing things. And I'm sure so many of them can actually help you achieve so many things. But the reality is, even when it comes to AI integration, you have to go the usual software development route. Understand your business first, the very exact problems, the processes, the costs, their priorities, and only then think about tech. Because if you're going to, again, think only about tech and AI first, that doesn't really work well, because you'll try to really force that innovation, which won't nicely fit into your current workflows, and nothing great is going to happen for sure. And this is the problem that we're seeing now in the market, right? Again, ChatGPT was released in 2022, it's 2025, and we are seeing a lot of businesses just switching and, sort of going from one tool to another tool to another tool. There's no holistic approach. So again, even the reason why I'm recording this video for you is I'm just asking, start with the fundamentals first, understand all of the things in your business, and only then identify the solution, not vice versa. I think that's it. I think this is the best and the most practical, pragmatic way to integrate AI into your business that will actually help you achieve big things, either save money or make more money. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe to this channel, because I'm going to be posting more and more very, very tactical videos when it comes to software development, complex software development, AI integration, and stuff like that. So I hope you enjoyed it. Have a great day.